I installed tracking software on my nephew's phone without telling him. My brother-in-law shoved me against the kitchen wall so hard the picture frames rattled. His wife stood behind him screaming that I was a controlling psychopath who needed professional help. My nephew Damon wouldn't even look at me. He just sat at the table with his arms crossed, staring at the floor like I was the one who'd betrayed him. The notification ping that exposed everything was still echoing in my head. 3 months of silence, and now I was the villain in a story none of them understood yet. Damon came to live with me after my sister's accident 4 years ago. He was 12, angry at the world, and convinced that everyone who tried to help him had an agenda. I didn't push. I just showed up, made dinner every night, drove him to basketball practice, sat through his silence until he was ready to fill it with words. By 14, he was calling me his second dad. By 15, we had inside jokes and weekend rituals and something that felt like family. His biological father lived 3 states away and sent birthday cards when he remembered. I was the one who stayed. That's why I noticed when things started changing. It started small. He stopped eating breakfast, started wearing hoodies in 90-degree heat, flinched every time his phone buzzed. I asked if something was wrong. He said everything was fine. I asked if someone was bothering him at school. He said I was being paranoid. His grades dropped from B's to D's in 6 weeks. He quit the basketball team without telling me. When I tried to talk to his guidance counselor, she said teenagers go through phases. When I called his father, he said I was overreacting and maybe I needed to give the kid some space. So I stopped asking questions, but I didn't stop watching. The night I installed the software, Damon had come home at 2 a.m. with blood on his knuckles and a split lip. He said he fell off his bike. We didn't own a bike. I waited until he was asleep, took his phone from the charger, and downloaded an app that would mirror his texts and GPS to my laptop. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was a violation of everything I'd built with him, but something in my chest told me I was running out of time to figure out what was happening before I lost him completely. The first week of data made my hands shake so hard, I had to put the laptop down and walk away. The texts were from someone named Rico, 31 years old, met Damon through a gaming server 8 months earlier. The messages started friendly. You're mature for your age. You're different from other kids. You understand things most people don't. By month 3, Rico was sending him cash through Venmo. By month 5, he was picking Damon up from school in a white Escalade and taking him to an apartment across town. The GPS showed Damon at that address 42 times in 3 months. The texts talked about packages, about deliveries, about keeping quiet or people would get hurt. Rico called him family. Rico said nobody else would ever understand him like he did. Rico said if Damon ever told anyone, bad things would happen to the people he loved. I screenshot everything. 200 pages of grooming and threats and manipulation disguised as mentorship. I called the police before I even finished reading. The detective arrived at my house the next morning. She looked at the evidence for 20 minutes without saying a word. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. We've been building a case against this network for a year. Your nephew isn't the only minor involved. He's just the first one whose guardian actually paid attention. They arrested Rico that afternoon. His real name was Vincent Okafor, 34, not 31. 3 prior convictions for trafficking. The apartment was a distribution hub for something the detective wouldn't name. Damon had been making deliveries without knowing what was in the packages. He thought he was helping a friend. He thought he'd finally found someone who respected him. The fallout was worse than the discovery. Damon's father drove down and accused me of traumatizing his son by involving the police. His stepmother said I should have talked to the family first before making everything public. Damon refused to speak to me for 2 months. He said I'd ruined his life. He said Rico was the only person who ever made him feel like he mattered. The school counselor suggested I'd overstepped my boundaries. A neighbor asked if I'd considered that maybe I was projecting my own issues onto a normal teenager. I sat through all of it and said nothing because there was nothing to say that would make any of them understand what I'd seen in those messages. Last week, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. Damon's handwriting, messy and slanted the way it always was when he wrote fast. 6 words. I didn't know what he was. I found him in his room that night, staring at the wall. He didn't say anything when I sat down next to him. He just leaned his head against my shoulder and stayed there until morning. Vincent Okafor received 18 years. Damon starts therapy next month. His father still hasn't called.